how can we overcome this fear of going live, Ian? What's the first step?
My advice is always to create a plan. Start with a plan, know what your why is, know who your audience is, and put it all down. When things go wrong, it's those bits that people actually like.
Overrated, underrated, Clubhouse.
Oh, this is hard. I kind of want to say overrated, but I'm not. I'm going to say underrated.
Today we're joined by globally recognized speaker, founder of Seriously Social, host of the Confident Live Marketing Podcast, the one and only Ian Anderson Gray. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here. Great to chat with you.
Yeah. Hey, listen, the pleasure is all mine. I've been watching what you've been doing from afar. I've been enjoying your live videos. I loved seeing you collaborate with Michael Stelzner over the Social Media Marketing Podcast. Can't wait to pick your brain about live video and the future of what it's going to hold. You ready to get into it?
I think so. Let's get on with it.
Let's lock and load. Let's rock and roll. I want to kind of go back to your beginnings, right? Because you originally got your start in blogging, talking about social media tools. How you recognized early that social media is an important place for entrepreneurs and business owners to be. At what point did you recognize the power and the importance of confident live marketing?
It was back in 2016. I dabbled around with live video before that. Google Hangouts on air was like a thing, but it was 2016 was when Facebook Live came out. But living in the UK, having an Android phone, I didn't have access to it. And so I looked at a way of getting access to it, finding ways to make it easier for other entrepreneurs to embrace it. Because in those days, it was quite hard. You had to use complicated software. So I actually use my knowledge of blogging to write a big blog post about how to do it. That went completely viral. It's had over like 6.5 million page views since I published it in 2016. And this was not planned, but suddenly I was being recognized as somebody, an expert in the live video field. There was one issue though, Mark, and that was that actually, when it came down to it, I was actually really nervous and scared about pressing that go live button. So over the next few years, I had to go on this mindset journey, deal with all the kind of, the demons in the past and all this kind of stuff so that I could get that confidence. And then I realized that actually, this is one of my passions, to help entrepreneurs with the three main barriers to live video, which are confidence and mindset, the tech and the gear, and the content and marketing. And so that's really how Confident Live was born back in 2016.
Yeah, so I love this, and I'm having a lot of conversations with a lot of people, particularly on Clubhouse. Clubhouse, I've been meeting a lot of people, but this problem of confidence comes up time and time and time again. People are too afraid to push play, and after people are too afraid to push record, and even after they've hit record, then they're afraid to actually upload it. Like, how can we overcome this fear of going live, Ian? What's the first step?
Well, there are loads of different things, and I suppose it depends on the issues that you face. But I think what really made the big difference for me was, first of all, knowing why you are doing. Why is it so important for you to actually press that go live button? And there were loads of reasons. For me, I realized that I, like a lot of entrepreneurs, when it comes to creating content, can be a bit of a procrastinator sometimes. A live video is the perfect antidote to perfectionists and procrastinators, because you're creating that content quickly and easily. You press that go live button and you're away. And then you can repurpose that into blogs, into podcasts, into all this cool stuff. So that's one thing. But my advice is always to create a plan. Start with a plan, know what your why is, know who your audience is, and put it all down. And then, and this is the key bit, just do it. Just do it and embrace who you are. Actually, when things go wrong, it's those bits that people actually like. And that took me ages to get over. We have to actually get over ourselves. That's the big thing, and not worry. And if you stumble over your words, I couldn't even say the word entrepreneurial on my first few live shows. I was going, and actually it was, learn to actually don't take yourself too seriously, enjoy it, have fun. And actually it's those bits about you, those imperfections, those flaws that people will love. And there are loads of other things you can do. There's things like do Instagram stories. That's a great way to get used to getting in front of the camera. There's going on to Clubhouse, which you mentioned, that is audio only. There's go on to somebody else's live show. And probably my favorite one is do a live video challenge. Say that you're going to go live in a Facebook group for the next 5-10 days. Do it every day. Make all the mistakes you like. It doesn't matter. And at the end of it, you're then ready to rock and roll. As you say, just get on with it.
Well, I love this idea of a challenge, and it's not the first time I've heard this. I want to lean a little bit more into this idea of a challenge, and I'm sure we can get a better infrastructure and kind of a more comprehensive plan through your program over at iag.me. But I want to talk about this idea, right? Because, and let's be straight, let's be frank, I still get butterflies in my stomach before I go live, and I've gone live, well over 100 times, but I still get those pits in my stomach. So this idea of doing a challenge, how do we want to set this up? You talked about you need to be clear on your why, and I assume that that's an important part of going into your live video. But let's say I'm doing a 7-day challenge, for example. How do I actually put a plan in place? Like, what am I actually supposed to be talking about on each day of my challenge?
Great question. And thank you for being honest. I'll be honest as well. I still to this day get those nerves, and actually it's not a bad thing. It's the key is then knowing what you do with those nerves. It's channeling that into excitement, because the emotions of nervousness and excitement are very related. But to answer your question about the structure and the plan, you need to have this overarching plan of what is your live show going to be about. Ultimately, it's down to your audience. What are you wanting to give them? You're there to serve them. What is the transformation that you want to make in their lives? So you need to have that overarching plan. The second thing is you need to plan out every single episode that you do. And I have what I call a run of show. So I have a structure. I structure that show. Don't overcomplicate it. The thing is, when you first start, it probably will be all over the place, but put something down on paper or, on Google Docs or whatever it is, so that you got this plan and structure it that way. For this original thing that we're talking about here, for the challenge, I actually wouldn't overthink it, because actually it's just about learning the process, learning the tech, creating a checklist, a tech checklist, and actually kind of formulating in your mind what it is that you want to talk about. So actually, I would just have a rough idea of what you're wanting to talk about in each episode. Maybe come up with 3 points, 4 points, and keep it short, maybe 5 minutes. Don't overthink it, because you'll find that you'll make mistakes. Maybe you'll realize that your microphone's not switched on or something's going wrong. It's in those early days that you want to make those mistakes so that you can learn from them. But ultimately, do plan it. Plan out the big plan for all of your episodes, and then for each episode, plan and get the structure for each one.
And I think this is great. Just go have some sort of structure. And one of the things that I think about when I'm recording my live video is the recording. How can I repurpose this and make this interesting? One of the things that I find with a lot of people that go live, especially if they're new to going live, is they spend the first 60 seconds to 120 seconds just really not talking about anything, right? Saying like, oh, hey, Jim, thanks for being here. I'm going live. Like, let's be frank. Should I wait for people to show up to my live video to start actually getting into the content, or should I just dive right in, Ian?
Great point. And there's different strategies here. The first thing I would say is don't get overly obsessed by the live part of the show. It's called live video. So, but we tend to think about our live audience as the most important people, but you'll probably find you'll get more people watching the replay than live. Sure. So, and actually, if you're repurposing into a podcast, you've got a third audience. There are technically 3 audiences. You've got the people who watch right from the start are the replay audiences. They're from the future. And you want to when you speak to them, you want to speak to them in the singular. Like there's quite an intimate experience. They're watching you on their own. Whereas the live people who will start to join, they're with other people. There's more of a party atmosphere, a community atmosphere. And then also in the future, if you're repurposing into a podcast, you've got your podcast listeners. So, but again, they're in the singular. It's a very intimate experience. So you need to structure the show in a way that's going to take into account those different audiences. Now, the way I used to do it, the way I used to structure my show is I would go straight into the content and I would talk to my replay audience. So I'd say, hi, thank you so much for watching the replay of this show. In today's show, I'm going to be talking about da 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 da. And then as my live viewers would join, I'd start to welcome them into and say hello to them. That's really important because you want to make them feel loved. Highlight those comments on the screen, but don't spend too long on it because it's boring for the podcast listeners and the replay. But I do it slightly differently now. I actually have a little countdown at the start. I then have a live segment. And then I get on with the main part of the show. In fact, I kind of almost restart my show and I'll say to my live audience, okay, I'm going to be back just after this. I put a slide up and then I come in and I say, hi, in today's show, I'm going to be talking about, and I start again there. After the live video is finished, I will then go back into YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and I'll trim off that beginning bit. So for the replay audience, they don't need to see that live bit, which isn't really valuable to them. So that's how I do that.
So I love this idea of being very engaging or understanding for the first 2 to 3 minutes, this is going to be for the live audience, right? The next several minutes, this is going to be for my podcast audience. And to me, that kind of structure makes it easier for editing.
Yes.
I've just started recording interviews in Clubhouse, right? Multi-purpose. I'm all about multi-purpose, reaching as many people. Yeah. So I've started that, but the challenge with Clubhouse is you're often going to be doing resets in the room, right? So let's say I'm doing a reset every 15 minutes or so. It's just much more time consuming to edit that out, remove it, kind of clean that up. So this idea of being more thoughtful about how your intro and go to the slider and then coming back, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. So when you're in the middle of your live video, are you still doing engagement with your live video viewers, or you wait to the end? How are you factoring in that engagement during the middle of your show?
Yeah, it's really important, to actually, you want to continually engage with your live audience. Yeah. And so I do that, and it works for the replay and it works for the podcast because I'm always asking my audience to get engaged and ask questions or comment. And so I'll always say, so maybe, if you were to come onto the show, I would say something like, oh, Mark's asked a really great question here. And I would mention that, I'd highlight it on the screen, and then I would answer it. Or I'd ask my guest to say, well, what do you think about what Mark's just said then? And that works really well for the replay. It works really well for the podcast. Obviously, with podcast listeners, they can't see anything, so sometimes you have to describe things to them. But I think that works really, really well. The only thing you've got to be concerned about is if it ends up being a lot of small talk and a lot of kind of just fluffy stuff. And so for that kind of stuff, if you're getting a lot of that kind of conversations, that's great, but you might want to leave that to the end. Now, I don't do this, but I know some people that do this really well, is they'll end the podcast and replay section, and then they'll have a live segment at the end, like a little party atmosphere at the end. Or the other option is you could say, and I don't do this because I get really quite tired at the end of my live shows. I put so much into it, but I know some people will have an after party on Clubhouse or somewhere else. So, and the great thing about that is that then you can actually talk with your audience, and it's just, so there's different ways of doing it. And I think you have to work out what's going to work for your repurposing requirements and what works for your energy levels and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I dig this. And to me, that's the magic of live video, is that engagement. It's that being with someone, but also the visual aspects you can do, sharing your screen, sharing visuals. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do. I gotta say, this is a little bit off topic, Ian, but I was listening to your podcast and you have one of the most unique intros to a podcast that I've heard. At first I was like, what is this? I don't like this. But then as I listened to it more, I was like, I do like this. This is really unique. How long did it take you to get to your current intro on your podcast? Or was that day one? I got to know.
It kind of was day one. So I have to kind of say my background is I trained as a classically trained singer. So for a long time, I wanted to kind of like, well, how can I bring my background in singing into it? And so I just like to have a bit of fun and quirky humor at the beginning. So I introduce my podcast. I then say something like, and now for something completely nutty. And I sing a theme song to do with what we're talking about on the episode. So and it's just a bit of fun. It's very silly. It's not taking myself seriously, but also I think it's something that stands out. I don't really see anyone else doing this. It's not going to be everyone's thing. I mean, you said you weren't quite so sure to begin with. I'm sure some people listen to this and think, what on earth is this? But hopefully over time, they'll end up liking that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if people want to work with me, they get me. So like, that is the way I am. I have a quirky sense of humor. I like to have fun. And so I want to be me. And that's the thing about live video and podcasting. It's so important to be yourself. It's all about, it's an overly used word, isn't it? But transparency is so, so important. So that's the way I repurpose my show. I have the main segment, but at the beginning I have a little intro. I have my silly theme song, and then we get on with the show. And it's great fun. I have to admit, I enjoy it.
It's really not just informative, but it's funny. Listen, everyone, you got to check it out. The Confident Live Marketing Podcast. You definitely want to, at the very least, you definitely want to check out the intro because it's very, very unique. And I honestly, I think I'm as a marketer, I have an immense amount of appreciation because I'm not going to forget your intro with the singing and especially the Michael Stelzner. I love that intro. It's really, really funny. Really funny. I want to talk a little bit here about the future of live broadcasting because it seems to me, Ian, that it's evolving tremendously quickly. People are not watching the news as often as they're watching their favorite live streamer on YouTube, right? So that's evolving, where people's eyeballs are going. Podcasts are seeing an involvement into Clubhouse and this live type of FOMO type of experience. Where do you see this live production going over the next 5 to 10 years? I'd love to hear your opinion, Ian.
Oh, wow. It's really difficult to know. I mean, things are moving so quickly. I mean, audio is like the darling format at the moment, isn't it? I mean, there's Clubhouse, there's Twitter Spaces, Facebook are doing their own thing now. And, so everything is about that. And, podcasting is big. There are some apps now that allow you to listen to podcasts in a community so you can actually live chat. There's some Clubhouse don't do this themselves, but there are some like third-party tools that integrate with Clubhouse that allow you to have a live chat facility. And so I think we're going to have more of that. We're going to have more of this community feel to it because like loneliness is like a big thing. And I think entrepreneurs in particular, I think many of us enjoy what we do because we like that space and we like to do what we want to be our own boss. Okay. But there's still, we need other people. I need this is why masterminds are so cool, so helpful, and being with other people. And so I think we're going to have more community tools, collaborative tools. I think Facebook and other platforms are already doing this. Audio is becoming a big thing too. So, if you had asked me this a couple of years ago, I might have said like 360 video, 3D video, like the real techie stuff. Mm-hmm. But now I think it's more to do with the human. It's putting the human front and center of these platforms. And I'm excited about that because ultimately, we can get obsessed by the tech and think about that. It's ultimately about communication, about that consistency, but also about community as well. So I think that's where we're going. What that will actually be, I don't know. But it's pretty cool to be alive at this time and see all this cool stuff happening.
It really is. Like the communication tools we have now have evolved immensely just over the last 10 years. It's remarkable. It seems like your favorite app looks different every month, right? And I totally agree with you on the importance of engagement and community. And to me, from a podcasting perspective, that's something that's been seriously lacking in the audio experience. So I'm really excited to see how these live chat tools kind of roll out and improve over time. Absolutely. What about events? I know you've been involved in a lot of events, world speaking, Ian. Do you think that live video gives you good preparatory tools so you know actually what to say when you get on a stage somewhere? Do you think there's a correlation between these two?
Yeah, definitely. In some ways, live video is more difficult or challenging than actually going and speaking on stage. This might sound really weird, but to begin with, I actually preferred to speak at a conference in front of 300 or 400 people. I actually found that less nerve-wracking than going live in front of a camera. And the reason for that is, there's two reasons. The camera is this inanimate object. It's this kind of, it doesn't give you any feedback. Whereas if you're in a room with 300 people, hopefully if the audience is good, they're giving you feedback. There's energy in the room. So you have to, with live video, you have to kind of get this energy from somewhere. And often that is from those nerves, as we said earlier. But it's, I think also because you're not getting that feedback, the structure and knowing what to say is more difficult than when you're in front of a live audience. But because of that, it is a really great place to start because you can't always rely on your audience. You may go somewhere where the audience is hostile or really not engaged. And so you should never rely on the audience. So live video is great from that point of view. It's also really good because you're creating that content consistently and quickly, and you can usually get a good idea of what works and what doesn't work. And you can even go into analytics. There's cool tools like Restream or even in Facebook itself where you can see the drop off. So if you might be 10 minutes in, number of viewers actually goes down, and you can go and think, what was I talking about there? Why did I lose my audience? Yeah. That is amazing data. We wouldn't really get that when you speak at a conference so much. So you can get all that information so that you can really hone your craft and become a better speaker.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with the idea of practice makes perfect. You got to practice, you got to put in the reps. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest value, in my opinion, that you get from going live is getting comfortable with discomfort. I remember reading The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and that was something that really stuck with me. And he has something in there where he recommends as practice to get comfortable with discomfort to just ask for a discount every time you whip out your wallet. And you would be shocked how difficult it is to ask for a discount at Chipotle. It's a little difficult. But listen, Ian, this has been awesome. I want to get into some overrated, underrated before I let you go. And I want to encourage everyone, if you're ready to step up your live video game, IAG.me. Ian has a ton of great resources and even starting a course here very soon on June 18th. So June 18th is the date of the new course launch. Ian, anything I missed there on your plugs? Anything exciting else that's coming?
I mean, I'm really excited about all the live stuff that I'm doing. I'm doing some live production work. There's the Launch Your Live course that's coming in June. That's always really exciting. And yeah, it's just, this is the year it seems for live. More and more people, I think, are embracing the power of live. And I think maybe before they could get away without doing it, now they realize they have to do it. They have to get on and get in front of the camera and then kind of get over their fears and do it.
Well, that's where your consumer lives. That's where your audience lives. They are on social media. In fact, I read a piece of data the other day that 75% of purchasing decisions are influenced by social media. And frankly, it's probably higher than that. And what I love about live video is that you're able to create that anchor content. And we just touched the tip of the iceberg on creating the anchor content and then redistributing it and reformatting it, because that's really what I'm obsessed with, is how can I get the most content for my time? That's my obsession. So live video, great part of that. All right, cool. Overrated, underrated. Don't be scared, Ian. It's not going to be too big of a deal. You ready to rock it? You ready to get into the overrated, underrated?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's rock and roll. Ian, overrated, underrated. Tea and crumpets.
Underrated.
Okay. Rodecaster Pro. Overrated, underrated.
I can't choose in between, can I? Underrated.
Okay. Why do you say underrated?
Well, it's kind of in the middle. It's not overrated either. It's in the middle. But I can't say anything bad about the Rodecaster Pro because I love it.
It's a great machine. I just got mine set up and running this week. It's a really fantastic machine. Overrated, underrated, going live on Facebook.
Ooh, I'm going to be controversial and say overrated, not because I don't like it and I love it, but there's so many other platforms out there that, like LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, that people don't think about. So that's why I'm going to say that.
I totally agree. Overrated, underrated, YouTube.
Definitely underrated. When it comes to live, I mean.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And I mean, all my questions are about social media. Overrated, underrated, Clubhouse.
Oh, this is hard. I kind of want to say overrated, but I'm not. I'm going to say underrated.
Okay, because I got to be honest, tons of hype around Clubhouse. Why are you so bullish on it?
I think it's the hype about it that I don't like, and it makes me. The rebel in me wants to say overrated, but it is so powerful. I love it. I don't spend as much time on it as I would like, but it's definitely part of my strategy this year. So I love it, and it's there are loads of other copycats out there like Twitter Spaces and stuff. Love or hate them. I do think Clubhouse is here to stay, and that's where we should be investing our time in terms of that format.
I agree. Hard to predict the future, but there's something unique and special about Clubhouse. I'm excited about it. All right, cool. Final question here for you, Ian, before I let you go. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell Ian?
Okay, it would be definitely get help. Build a team. Like, don't try and do everything on your own. But yeah, because I was a procrastinator, a perfectionist, all these things. And if only I had actually gone out there and got some help from like coaches or building a team, it would have changed everything for me.
Words of wisdom from the man himself, Ian Anderson Gray. Thanks for joining the After Hours Entrepreneur.
Thanks, Mark. It's been great.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.